Welcome again to another Curator's Chat. I'm Jason French, Curator of Collections at the Behringer-Crawford Museum. Today I'm in the library and I wanted to share with you a very recent acquisition. In fact, it just came yesterday. And it's nothing too large. It's just a little wallet. Now, this wallet is really for cards and IDs. And this is from the 1920s and 30s. This came actually through a nurse who had been taking care of a woman who passed away at the age of 97. And that woman's name was Shirley Weigel. And this was Shirley's father's wallet. His name was Kenneth Weigel. And Shirley had kept this all her life. And in this wallet is all of the different clubs and activities that Mr. Weigel was part of throughout his life, or at least in his youth in the late 1920s and early 1930s, when Shirley was just a little girl, maybe even this little girl right here. Since Shirley was born in 1923, this could very well be Shirley. Her father, Kenneth, was born in 1891. And through a little research, since I knew there's cards in here from the American Legion, and there's cards from the Masonic Lodge, he was in the Shriners, they lived in Ludlow, Kentucky. He lived there from at least when he was a teenager. He lived with his aunt, who was Lula Vogue, and they lived around 36 Elm Street. But what I find really interesting is that Shirley, throughout her life, kept this momentum of her father. And this was the way that she remembered her father. Kenneth actually passed away in 1968. This, if you found this in a drawer somewhere, and you look through it, you go, oh, this is just old cards. It's nothing. You know, you might have even thrown it away because it wasn't special. But this is an archive of a man's life in the 1920s and 30s. This card is from the Crusaders. Now, the Crusaders was a club, and this club was meeting in Crew Tower in Cincinnati. The card itself says Temperance and Liberty. The Crusaders get their start in 1929, and the first club was in Cleveland, Ohio. This club was, of course, in Cincinnati, and what they were is an anti-18th Amendment. They wanted to repeal Prohibition because they believed that the Prohibition had been detrimental and caused more crime in the United States than good. And what happened is the Crusaders was formed after the St. Valentine's Day massacre. So Mr. Kenneth Weigel here, that lived in Ludlow, Kentucky, was involved in this organization that was actively seeking to repeal Prohibition in the United States. It's the first time I've ever seen this card and knew anything about this organization. And it was really special and an interesting thing to find. There's also other aspects of his life. There's a rental car where Mr. Weigel had rented a car from a company that had rental services in Cincinnati, but other cities around the United States. And I believe this to be late 20s, maybe early 30s. There are 6 years of his memberships at the Elks Lodge. And I'm still just fascinated by the idea that we keep our story in our wallet. What do we have that people can learn about us in our wallets that tell our stories? One card here is admittance into Spring Grove Cemetery, and it's got a lot number in it. And in that lot was buried someone named Myrtle Weigel. And I'm not entirely sure, but I believe Myrtle Weigel was Shirley's mother. And Shirley, her mother died when she was about 2 of tuberculosis, we believe. It's interesting to me what we can find out just from a simple little artifact that may have been in the drawer somewhere that you think about, you might even discard, but it tells us so much, and there are treasures within that. You know, the Spring Grove certificate here, or this Crusaders card. There are things here that are very special. You wouldn't think to keep. They may not seem that important, but they help us fill out the story of what it was to be alive in Ludlow, Kentucky in the 1920s and 30s, what that must have been like. And it's the simple things sometimes that help us understand our ancestors and those who came before us even better. So I just love sharing that with you. These treasures that we may see, that may seem unassuming, sometimes tell us a great deal about our forefathers. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, please feel free to like and subscribe. We love seeing your comments. If you happen to know any more about these individuals, I would love to know more about them. And thank you for thinking of us as a place to leave your treasures so that we can preserve them for the future, because these things, this little archive here, is a treasure. We'll see you on our next Curator's Chat. Thank you.